Good morning, everyone. My name is Miles, and I'm a disability inclusion partner here at Peak Performers. Welcome to Disability Weekly. I'm so glad to see you here. Please take a second to introduce yourself. You know, a lot of times we've gotten out of the habit of meeting people in person and connecting with people, but please take a second to fix that and drop a comment into the chat that introduces yourself, introduces why you're interested in disability inclusion, and connect with the other people that happen to be joining us live. Real quickly, I just want to get right out of the gate that Sydney unfortunately will not be able to join us today. She does send her regards, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be filming again a little bit later with her in a filmed format, and then broadcasting that. I will make sure to include the link and send it to the people that did RSVP for this. So today we're going to do something a little bit different, and we're going to just talk about a couple of different things that have been on my mind as a disability inclusion advocate here at Peak Performers. So today starts off Mental Health Awareness Month, which is a very important month. But you know, this has me thinking. I recently did an interview with Grant Harris, who is a neurodiversity expert, and he said something that's really stuck with me, and that is that awareness is different than advocacy. Advocacy is different than action, and action is different than acceptance. And I think that all those are important, but what I would challenge you this month, as we celebrate Mental Health Awareness Month, is to move beyond simply awareness and move on to other kinds of things, such as advocacy and action and acceptance. Because the truth of it is that ever since the COVID-19 pandemic, we have made a lot of progress towards better including people with various different mental health disabilities and disorders within our broader society. And we have seen so much more acceptance, especially around depression and anxiety disorder. However, I think that there's still a long way to go. We still have a lot of progress to be made towards especially certain kinds of conditions that might be more stigmatized within our society. So for example, somebody that might have schizophrenia or is perceived as, air quote here, crazy. So take a second to challenge yourself and think about what mental health awareness means for you. I can tell you that having been through a mental health episode myself about a decade ago, it's something that matters to me. It's something that has always been on my mind. And I think that really a lot of it came down to not feeling like an outcast within the workplace. I remember one time when I had told a coworker about some of the different things that I was going through. And I remember the look that came across his face when I said something and how he never met eye contact with me again. And I think that that's a good starting point for us to think about how we're engaging and talking with other people with mental health disorders or people that are just having a bad mental health episode. How can we be more responsive to their needs? How can we be more accepting? And how can we include them a little bit better within our workplace and broader society as well? By the way, if you are just joining, just to let you know, Sydney won't be able to make it today, but I hope that you stick around. I'm going to be talking for about 15 minutes about a couple of things that are on my mind. Please take a second to drop a line into the chat introducing yourself. So as we kick off Mental Health Awareness Month, we also wrapped up Autism Awareness Month, and that was over the course of last April. And there's been a lot of chatter online about Autism Awareness Month, and particularly how sometimes it can feel a little bit hollow, right? There might be like the banners that are on social media celebrating autism awareness. However, there's not actually the action that's attached to it. So what I would challenge you until we see April again next year is what can you do to enact meaningful change? And I think that this starts by having good conversations. If you have somebody in your workplace that you know has autism or is neurodiverse in other ways, I would ask them, hey, how can I be more inclusive of you within the workplace? What areas do you struggle, and how can I better support you? I do believe that all of this starts with having good conversations and normalizing the experience of having autism or whatever your neurodiversity, mental health, or any other kind of disability is. It all starts with normalization and talking about it. So we've been having a lot of conversations about Autism Awareness Month, and I think that that's important that we think about that going into next year, because while we may celebrate it once a year, this doesn't just go away. It's not like people suddenly don't have autism anymore. It's something that they live with for 12 months out of the year. The next thing that I'll kind of briefly touch on, and this was the topic that me and Sydney were going to talk about, is benefits reform. And I wanted to share a couple of nuggets with you for conversation. So the reason that this matters to me is that I remember that we were considering doing business with another entity a while back, and this entity was working with people with many different kinds of disabilities, but especially vision loss. The challenge that we encountered was that many of the people that were working for this organization were actively turning down raises. They were turning down promotions, and they were turning down more available hours to work because they had to protect what is called Social Security Insurance, or SSI. Now, when you talk about it, there's actually two different kinds. There's SSI and SSDI. SSI is what many people who have faced barriers from the beginning, and they may be eligible from a very young age to receive government benefits. Sometimes the political discourse can get to the point where we're talking about people, air quotes here, mooching off the system. But keep in mind that the maximum individual benefit is about $994 a month. The maximum for a couple is $1,491 a month. This is not any way that anybody is going to get rich by any stretch of the imagination. And this breaks my heart whenever I see somebody that actively turns down more jobs or more pay or more opportunities because they are worried about losing these, in my opinion, what are meager government benefits. Now, on the other side of the spectrum is SSDI, so Social Security Disability Insurance. This is something that you're contributing to as part of your paycheck in case you ever become disabled. And this can be up to $4,152 per month. But again, that's based off of how much you actually earn from your paycheck and how long you're feeding into this. But again, still not, not that much when you think about the grand scheme of things and what's available. So the challenge that I would have to you is to think about these and think about how can we change this system. The other thing that bugs me about SSI from a general perspective is that many people that I talk to that have been living off of SSI for a number of years actively they'll be living with a partner and a long-term committed partner. However, they never get married because what happens is that if they get married, then cumulatively, they might make enough money that they no longer qualify for government benefits. And just imagine being in a situation where you cannot marry your significant other because you're worried that collectively the two of you will make more money and therefore not qualify for benefits. The final thing that I'll say is that these benefits are difficult to get. Like these typically take months, if not years, to qualify for. It requires constant paperwork and all of that for, again, $994 a month. So be thinking to yourself, what can we do to actively change government benefits in a way that's more beneficial for people? Because this is not anybody, air quotes, mooching off the system. These are people that oftentimes have been denied opportunities from the very beginning. Their disabilities often might make it so that it's difficult for them to participate in a competitive environment. Or, as is often the case, they are just told that you can't do something from a very young age. And that breaks my heart. By the way, we got a couple of comments coming in. I appreciate y'all joining me. We have Jennifer, she says, amen. Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that. We have David. Hello from the UK. Interest in disability advocacy and accessibility. Thank you. And thanks for your other comment as well, Jennifer. Never thought about this, but it makes total sense as well. Appreciate all y'all joining me today. So again, join me again when I talk with Sydney a little bit more, and she's going to bring another perspective, and that is the perspective of Canada. She's a Canadian, and she is going to talk about their benefits and how they might differ from the United States, but also how they're very much kind of similar in many different ways. The final thing that I'll kind of leave you with is that next week we're going to be talking with a good friend of mine named Jack. He runs a very popular newsletter called Accessibility in the News. And Jack is going to be joining us and talking about kicking the accessibility can. Now, for those of you who are not aware of what's happening right now, Section 504 is a foundational piece of legislation that ensures many people, particularly education school children, have access to equitable kind of opportunities. But in this particular context, it's actually talking about ensuring that government agencies are totally accessible. Imagine, for example, you are a person who is blind and you need to be able to access a website and you can't see. How do you do that? Well, a lot of times what's happening is that the computer is reading things aloud to you and interpreting that information. So if you've ever been told to add alt text to your images, what that's doing is that's feeding in a description into your image so that it describes what the person sees. But there's a lot of people that are using screen readers that can't even get onto your website. Like there's such foundational issues to access that they can't even be able to get on there in the first place. What's happened is that the federal government is kicking the can down the road and saying that, hey, accessibility, we're going to delay the requirements for compliance with that. And what that means is that state and local government agencies, yes, they'll have more time to be able to make their websites fully compliant. But in the meantime, all of those individuals that rely off of going to those websites, say, for example, for government benefits, right? All of these individuals are going to find themselves yet again in a position where they cannot access basic information and participate within our civic government. So it's accessibility is something that is pretty niche within our community, but I think it's something that's super important. So that I hope that you join me. And again, that's going to be Fridays at 11:30 Central Standard Time here in the United States. But certainly hope that you join me for this conversation and all conversations in the future. I did want to take a second to thank the folks that did join me live today. Please do join me next week. We're going to be having some great conversations. And in the meantime, please do engage with any kind of comments or any kind of content that I have. We have a couple of really cool recordings that are going to be coming out next week, including I did an interview with Aaron Golub, and he's going to be talking about when your barriers become your fuel. He is a blind public speaker, and he consults with companies, and he's going to be talking about how his experience being a Division I and being part of the NFL as a blind athlete has really given him a unique competitive advantage. And then later, I'm going to be publishing also an interview that I did with Grant Harris, who I referenced earlier, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about the experience of masking for those who live with autism. So certainly hope that you can join me again next week at 11:30. And again, I'm sorry that Sydney was not able to join, but I appreciate all of y'all that did join me in the live format. Please let me know if you have any questions and connect with me on LinkedIn. Until next time, this has been Miles from Peak Performers. We'll see you later.